Well, hello everybody, and welcome to episode number 74 of FinalBossTV, your WoW in-game rating show. I will be your host. My name is Adam K, aka Bay, and on today's show, we are talking about Brewmaster Monks. With a homeless Viking who's currently squatting in some castle out in Europe somewhere. And Totalchai is here. So we only have two guests, no co-host shenanigans. We'll get right into Brewmaster Monk tanking stuff right here. So I'll give you the man himself, I guess, before chat room explodes. There's Luun. What's up, buddy?
Hey guys, it's good to be back. I know you missed me a lot, Bay, so...
Right. Setting up the show, I was like, it's been like over a year since you've been here. It's been a while.
I've just been waiting, like, just non-stop, just sitting in my chair, or in this basement, rather.
In this basement of that castle that you're in right now, right?
Yep.
Yeah?
Exactly.
Comfy castle? Is it warm?
It's warm. It's warm enough, so I can't have any lighting on.
Yeah. It's a little bit, I mean, you're lit by basically only campfire right now, it seems. It's so dark in there.
Yeah, it's like a campfire to my right, so...
Yeah. Cool, gotcha. Well, it's good to have you back on the show, man. We'll talk about plenty of how much awesome Guard is during the show. And then, we also have Total. What's up, Totalchai? How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing well.
Yeah, ready to do this? Jump on this monk stuff? Yeah? You sure?
First time here, ready to rant about monks and all fun monk stuff.
Right. Well, apparently you're a little bit more math savvy than Luun, which is good, because he doesn't know how to read, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Oh, good, yeah. So you're not going to be typing anything, you'll be at least saying it all, so that's fine. Help him out, because he doesn't even know what his abilities actually do. He just learns by hitting them all a lot, right?
Well, it works. I mean, Monk's pretty easy, so...
Oh, Monk's pretty easy, so okay. Okay. Yeah? Alright, fine. So what do you guys think of Warlords so far? How has everything been for your launch? I asked our European guest last week how the launch was and stuff and how Warlords is so far, so I'm going to ask Total this time. Total, how is Warlords General treating you so far, sir?
It's pretty well. I love garrisons and everything. Nothing else really in the expansion is all that different, except now, like, all the stat stuff is a lot more complicated than it used to be, but I don't know, it's still World of Warcraft, mostly the same stuff.
It's funny you say it's more complicated, because technically it's supposed to be easier.
Yeah, funny joke.
I mean, we brought that up on the show last week, too, about, like, with the inability to rely on gems, and without the ability to tailor your gear to make it actually easier for the character, now it's like, well, do I put this piece of gear on? Like, do I use these shoulders or this off piece? Do I use this trinket or that one? Like, for DPS warriors, Sari has, like, 4 different shoulders and different trinket setups. Whatever. Ridiculous. How about you, Luun? How's Warlords going so far for you, sir? How many ults do you have? Like 15?
I have 7. Max level, do you mean? I don't play them all that much, though, but I have 7.
Gross. How many split runs did you guys do?
We did 4. We only actually have 1 mandatory ult in ScrubBusters, but we have a lot of, like, socials and stuff that help out, so...
Okay.
But the launch was pretty horrible, I guess, in Europe. Like, we have a lot of issues, I think, I guess, in the US as well. But, I mean, after a few days, it went fine. It's been a good expansion so far. A little bit, like, kind of a long tier, I guess, because it kind of never really... wasn't really a real break between Heimdall and Foundry. And it lasted for, like, 4 weeks or something for us, which is quite a lot, so... It's nice to be done. But it's been fun so far. Foundry was really good instance and stuff, so...
Yeah. You both agree? What do you think, that Foundry probably a lot better than Heimdall overall? I mean, Heimdall was kind of like just like the tip of the iceberg, I guess.
I like ogres and stuff, so I thought Heimdall was cool, but Foundry was a lot better. Like, it's a much better instance. But Heimdall was okay. It was a fine starting instance, I guess.
Yeah. What about you, Total?
I really like the boss rooms in Foundry, like Hans and Franz's room, and like just Blackhand's whole 3-tiered thing is just really cool.
Yeah. Well, the 3-tiered thing, I don't know, everyone get ready to drink here. I got my drink ready for this. There was a end boss in the first tier of the launch of SWTOR, Star Wars Old Republic, who had a very similar mechanic to Blackhand is now. I wonder where they got that idea.
What game is that?
That was a fun boss too, though.
Soa, yeah, you would descend,
kidding.
you would descend through levels of the dungeon, yeah. But no, it works out well. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I'm sure Loon has a different mindset about how fun Mythic Blackhand is, though.
It's a good encounter. I don't know. Like it's okay. Like it's not the best, not the worst. It's hard though, but I wouldn't say it's like one of the best encounters ever made or anything.
Right. Yeah. No, that's fair.
But it obviously like depends on what you like and stuff. It's just too much room for personal mistakes. We have a lot of bad like rogues and stuff. So.
That's true. That is true. It's definitely no Lei Shen. That's for certain.
Yeah, like I like Lei Shen a lot, for example, more than this one.
We had to take that off the docket of answers to say during Mr. Pandaria shows because everyone's like, "So what's your favorite boss?" Like, well, Lei Shen, of course. So we had to remove him because everyone said that in any way. So, yep. So Brewmasters going from Mists to Warlords. Everyone gets that ability pruning-ness, and this is the first major expansion that Monks existed in, and now they have their own, like, they're not the brand new kid on the block anymore. So how'd the ability pruning hit Brewmaster Monks? Because I know you guys are gonna like shed a tear real quick for Clash, and then you lost healing spheres. But were there anything else that was majorly lost, or was that about it total?
The big thing about the ability prune is just that, like, because monks were a new class, Brewmasters had a lot of things that were just kind of like thrown on for no particular reason. Like, I don't really know why we had it disarmed to begin with. So they just kind of like removed a lot of stuff that was never really that important to begin with. So, most of it doesn't really matter all that much, except healing spheres, which was just kind of a problem of having an instant spammable heal that you could use while running around that caused some issues.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Because you guys still have your own healer, right? You guys have the little healing Surgy thing for Brewmaster.
Yeah, it just has a cast time now.
Oh, okay. Right.
It's pretty shit in combat. Like,
terrible.
I actually used it on Blackhand though. Like,
oh?
But yeah, it's because like the boss is like running away and stuff, and
Yeah.
But it's not good. It's just like I have nothing better to do, and
There's nothing better to do. But then, yeah, I guess, did you guys both miss Clash? Was it something I thought that was an interesting thing when I was leveling my Brewmaster back in the day, but that's gone. Was anything else lost? Or what, Loon?
Well, about Clash, I liked it with challenge modes, and like there was like some encounters, but it never worked on bosses, so it doesn't really matter, It was nice to have though. I like having like a charge type of thing, but it was often bugged and stuff, so I don't think anyone is like thinking back and like, oh my god, we should have had Clash for this or something. Like it's just gone and it's fine.
Yeah. I don't know.
I miss healing spheres more. I thought they had some cool gameplay.
Yeah, just too
you
powerful,
could,
I
like,
guess.
heal people. Well, yeah, maybe. I guess like you could heal people up for 200k out of like 300k health if you placed it under them. So
yeah,
you could save people and stuff.
Because they would scale with Vengeance back in Mist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But speaking of Vengeance, then that is now gone, which thankfully you both. Yeah. Thumbs up around, I would hope, right?
Yeah.
More or less.
So you have Resolve now, which Resolve only affects the healing and absorbs that tanks do. So like, there's no more DPS whoring, as it were. There's no more sitting down to get crit, to get incredible amounts of Vengeance. So how does this impact Brewmasters? Like, what gains from Resolve, Loon?
Well, compared to Vengeance, like obviously the defensive side of it, it's pretty much the same. I mean, you gain more absorbs, you gain more healing from your healing spells, but there's no offensive value to it, so you don't actually play worse to do more DPS anymore. I can't really think of any cases where you don't want to have higher resolve to heal up something later on. There might be like some places, I guess, but it's only lasts for 10 seconds as well, so you can't really like stack it up or whatever and then like run off somewhere and heal or something. But I think it's a good change. Like it's not, I guess a lot of tanks like played tank for the Vengeance DPS and stuff, but I don't really care about that. So Resolve is much better than Vengeance in my book.
Yeah. Total? What about Resolve? How's that all work out for?
My favorite part about Resolve is just that it's a lot more straightforward, because Vengeance gave damage. There were a lot of weird things they had to do with it to make it not give extra vengeance sometimes. You know, like towards the end of Mist, there are like weird calculations of how many different mobs there were, or this ability doesn't trigger vengeance, blah blah blah. Resolve is just totally straightforward. It's basically just how much damage you're taking. So like how much you're going to have, and it's not as weird and gamey as vengeance was.
Yeah.
Yep.
So is there? I don't know if Blue said that Resolve actually is a DPS increase for Brewmasters. Is he trolling, or does it actually make the expel harm do more damage?
Yeah,
is that
sure.
what he's talking about?
Sure. I mean, I guess it will do a little bit more damage, but I don't think you're gonna be sitting in fire, so you could do that big expel harm crit or something. Like it's not that big. But I mean, I guess if you really, really, really want that extra 500 damage or DPS, sorry, then go for it.
Yeah. But it does work though. Interesting.
Yeah.
But outside of expel harm and your healing little mist cast time forever, then guard, I guess, the only thing that really is interacting with Resolve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that scales pretty well with
pretty
well. It's
pretty
okay.
well. It's okay. It's
guard shields with procs. It's okay.
Guard's not bad, right? Only just can absorb 4 boss hits or something like that. No big deal.
It's like sometimes it's better than my off tank. He's usually dead, and I'm just sitting there with my guard. So
yeah, which I guess what's the guard timing minigame? I guess if you want to bring that up now, total what kind of guards can you get during progression right now? You're not done with content, and I'll bring up Loon's how he's abused it as well. But it just seems like that's one of the best. Is that the only really main tool you have as a Brewmaster though? Should guard be as powerful as it is right now, or is it too good?
It fits the same as other tanks, like 30-second cooldowns, like Divine Protection, Demoralizing Shadows a minute, but it's similar. Like Druid's Bark Skin and stuff. It's in the same thing, except it's an absorb shield instead of a damage reduction, which means it's just so strong for single hits. And I think at the start of a rule pulls, when I have everything procced and a pre-pot and everything, I've seen 750k guards on myself. It's just absurd, because that's I'm only sitting there with 500,000 health.
Does it have a cap though? Does guard have it can only be X, Y, and Z above your health, or no?
No, it just scales with all attack power and versatility and stuff, and it'll go as high as your stats allow it.
I mean,
on Blast Furnace, Mythic on the pull there, I tanked the boss as well. I'm assuming other things will hit me harder, but obviously everything is procced. I have the potion and so on. I get 1 million guard on the pull every single time. That just lasts until it falls off usually. So
1 million guard on the pull.
Yeah, it's over twice your health.
So now, if you could, I don't know why. I'm just curious. Blue just brings up in chat too that baseline guard is max resolve shield barrier.
Yeah.
Now, in that, guard has a 30-second cooldown, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah.
So. And shield barrier technically has a 12, and it's 2 charges. I think is how the warrior one works.
No, that's shield block. Shield barrier doesn't have a cooldown.
Oh no, that's right. It's true. There's no charges on barrier, only block. Okay, interesting. But is it okay that it's that powerful, or I don't want you to I'm not gonna actually to tell openly yeah, we should nerf RO itself, but is that?
I don't think guard is the problem, but it could be a little bit lower. But at the start of the expansion, before they buffed it was pretty crap. So maybe in the middle, but I don't think guard is a big problem if you want to nerf monks. It could be lower though, but no doubt. But it's really good in some cases. In some cases, it might be not be as good as something else, for example. But I'm pretty happy with my guards. It's if you can literally if you know you have a guard ready, you can just sit there and you don't need anything because you know you're not gonna die almost no matter what happens. On 9 out of 10 fights, you can just sit there and I dropped low guard, and then you just 10 seconds later something else might be available.
Yeah.
And it's a nice thing with monk, I guess. You can kind of predict your yeah, you won't really die if you have a guard available.
Now, is that in the whole toolkit of monks though? Since guard is both physical and magic, that's a giant absorb. Does the DR on a guard actually take into effect what you have on yourself? Say if you have a percentage base reduction, does your guard absorb more than what it says because it actually takes less damage, or is it just flat? There's nothing that can actually improve how much damage the guard absorbs. If I'm explaining that correctly.
It works just like any other absorb, like a power word shield or something, where it's just after all the other damage you take. So yeah, if you're not taking much damage, then the guard doesn't take a big hit. And that's actually why it seems really strong, is not because of guard itself, but if you're not taking a whole lot of damage and you have a big shield on top of that, then it lasts a lot longer than it's really supposed to. Like, you know, all those other 30-second cooldowns last like 6 or 8 seconds or something. A guard can last the full 30 seconds sometimes, of taking just 0 damage instead of just reduced damage.
Right. Because I harken this back to the shields on Tortos for Mythic. If you put like a damage reduction for the Stomp, you won't actually lose your shield because the shield will reactively take 30% less damage. So it's that kind of stuff. I didn't know if that works. Like if you brood behind the guard, will the guard last longer on physical hits? That's what I'm just... if that's a thing. Or will if a guard, so it will.
Yep.
Wow.
You take less hits, then the absorb doesn't go away that fast, and it's just there.
Jeez. So like
it's a good spell.
So if you get lucky with like coupling like a dampen harm or like a diffuse magic with a guard, you could. I mean, if you diffuse magic into a magical spell with a guard up, the guard might not even move. So then you would have the guard still up for physical attacks after the spell.
Yeah, sure. I wasn't exaggerating when I said the guard sometimes lasts its full 30 seconds, because it just falls off after 30 seconds anyways. There are times where I will literally take 0 damage while actively tanking for a full 30 seconds, just because guard eats all of it.
It's obviously RNG as well. I mean, if you dodge or, I don't know, if you take like 10 full hits in a row, you're probably going to fall off, but yeah, it's pretty good. But I wouldn't say it's like the problem, I guess, with monks, if you want to find the problem.
Well, if you want to talk about the problem, which this came up, of course, this came into almost an abusive state in Mists of Pandaria, with just how Stagger works and how good Stagger is. So to preface the whole Stagger stuff, there's no interaction between Resolve and Stagger, though, right? But how do those... we talked about that before in the pre-show. How do those two work together in that regard, total? Like, what's the back and forth on that?
There's just 0 effect at all. That Stagger is just a flat damage reduction of sorts, except instead of... it reduces the damage and then puts a dot on you for the amount the damage was reduced. It's basically like Warlock Dark Bargain.
Right.
Just all the time.
Right. Correct.
Yeah, it's like your blocks kind of turn into a dot, but it's like twice as good as blocks, so...
Well, right. Well, there was a quote I wanted to bring back up again with how... like with how your resolve works and how you can judge incoming damage. How does that interact with Stagger, though? Like, how do you plan around, like, you know, you're gonna take this amount of hits, so you can work around that? Like, that's what I'm trying to get to again. I forgot what I actually said that spawned this conversation, but I was like, oh, that's pretty good stuff. Bring it up on the show.
Right. It's that resolve, like, rather than having a direct effect, kind of like I said earlier, that it's a much more straightforward measure of how much damage you're taking, is that you just can kind of look at it and go like, oh, I'm at really high resolve. That must mean, I'm going to take a lot of damage once my cooldown falls off or something, or like, even like mastery trinkets can give a lot of stagger. So like secretly the boss is actually hitting you really hard. You just don't see it because you're not taking much damage. So then you can, look at your high resolve and be like, I'm going to get wrecked as soon as this stuff falls over. Just because Stagger can kind of hide what's really going on sometimes, just because you take so little damage that, sometimes it's hard to tell exactly what the boss is hitting you for, which Resolve is good for.
Right. No, that makes
Pretty
sense.
much so.
So have you ever actually, with Purifying Brew timing to remove Stagger, or with using Chi Explosion, which we'll get into the whole Chi Explosion stuff later on, have you ever actually just like taken a whole bunch of damage, gotten high Stagger, and then guarded the dot to save a Purifying Brew to like reset later on? If you're like not the one main tank, like if you just tank swapped off a tank debuff like Thogar or something, like how would that, or would you use the guard just to brunt all the damage to not get high Stagger?
I'd say that like if you ever use a guard to save 1 chi, that would be horrible. Like, you should never do that. Like, chi is, you have so much chi, free chi, just purify it off and then save guard for important abilities that will, like if you drop low guard or if you need like a big hit or some like magical dots, I guess you could technically guard. But Togar 1 isn't that difficult, but Blast Furnace 1 in last phase is really damaging to monks. So guarding that is good, for example.
Okay, so you wouldn't. Purifying Brew just takes chi, right? Well, or
Yeah,
chi explosion in that regard. So, okay. So don't use.
Yeah, just purify it off and use your guard for more important stuff.
Okay, cool. I wanted to separate that. I didn't know if that was a playstyle that some brewmasters were using. They weren't sure about if they should guard high stagger. And all right, cool. And then I guess purifying brew management. I got a question that came in. If there are any times you don't want to use it, I guess there's some serenity interactions with purifying brew timing on like, do you like continuously spam it during serenity to like keep your stagger really low and just mitigate all these hits and throw that damage away, or is there times where you just want to wait a while and then just use a purifying brew on a certain like moment, like before you tank swap back into a boss, something like that? In total, how does that work?
For the most part, you just kind of want to get rid of it just if you have the chi available, but like there's no advantage to keeping Purify around. It's more like sometimes it's beneficial to wait a few seconds and use it later. Like if you have to guard for something like Crippling Suplex on Hans and Franz where they pick you up and you can't really get any more chi, if you like use all of your chi to purify, then you might not have enough to guard during it, or you'd want to like wait until right before you get picked up to do one last purify. Because if you did it like a couple seconds earlier and you're down only 2 chi and you have to guard and everything, you might get hit a couple times in the meantime, and then you have a bunch of stagger that you can't get rid of for a little while. So it's more of a resource gain than really that it's ever actually beneficial to keep stagger around. It's just sometimes it's not worth using the resources on it.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember on Blackhand Phase 1 when you're getting like about to get like Shattering Smashed or whatever it's called when you get like thrown away. It generally like wait till after I'm hit rather than 2 seconds before to purify. Else you have to purify twice anyway because that gives you like a 50k extra dot. So there you just gotta like learn to know when to purify, I guess. But generally you just kind of like purify whenever it feels like you should. Yeah.
Okay. I guess there's an ebb and a flow to when you should. How much Purify does it remove all stagger again? I've never played a Brewmaster Monk really, so all of it. Fair enough. But yeah, I guess it makes sense too, because you don't want to purify, then take a huge hit, then have to get your chi back up again, then purify again. You rather take the hit, wait for like the tank swap with that phase example on Blackhand, then purify and then go back in. Yeah.
Yeah, I would for example guard and dampen harm that big hit, but then I would still get like a 100k dot that would like take me down, and I still like, purify that rather than purifying twice. So it's just you just play Brewmaster and you kind of learn after a while. But yeah.
Are there any add-ons that you guys use to like monk specific or tank specific that you want to like plug for chat that you use to like manage your stagger and or guard and or resolve that you've used? Are there any weak auras that you could suggest or any add-ons total? Do you use anything like that helps out?
Well, weak auras is really the only thing that I think is just necessary. And I think like at this point in the game, if you're seriously raiding, you kind of need to have weak auras just because you can do anything with it.
That's true.
You can track anything that you want, and you use what works for you. The only real things I would say you probably need to track is like, exact amount of stagger, and it's a good idea to be able to keep a better eye on your resolve than the big, having to mouse over the buff in the corner and everything.
Sure.
But aside from that, it's just some things are useful, but there isn't a whole lot that's really like mandatory.
Sure. Okay. Loon, do you think like that? Do you use any?
No, I use Weakross as well for some of it, and I use Tell Me When for some. It's the same as Weakross, just a little bit easier to set up. It has less options though, but it's tracking shuffle and stuff is very easy with it. So, but yeah, you just gotta track everything with Brewmaster, like track shuffle, Lucy Brew, guard, to resolve, stagger, and so on. There's a lot of stuff to track, but it becomes a lot easier after a while. But yeah, just tracking stuff in general is the key, and I guess having some kind of external cooldown monitor. And I also like to have title plates to see like what I have threat on and stuff, but that doesn't really matter anymore. It's never really an issue with threat. It wasn't like TPC or whatever, so.
It is a good point. You did bring up a lot of things. I mean, if you want to like really track you can track resolve, stagger, shuffle, your you said your guard timing. I guess if you want to see how much of your shield is left over, a lot of little things to, I guess, pay attention to if you want to like know all your ins and outs, right?
It's a lot of information that's already in the UI, just usually hidden behind things you have to mouse over. So it's good to just bring things out to where you can actually see it.
Yeah. Absolutely, that's true.
Yep.
If Blue has any like links to weak or tracking guard, stagger, shuffle stuff, he can of course post that in chat for you guys if you want, and you can check that out. So we already talked about cooldowns resolved. We brought this up on the other tank episodes in the past, whereas since resolve has that like ever ticking downfall of like you take hits and it readjusts and takes damage, whatever. Do you have any issues going? I guess you could just guard into this, like going into tank swaps where you don't have any resolve really stored up. You have a little bit left over from when you had the boss before, because most every boss in this stupid game now has a tank swap. Is resolve okay in that regard? Do monks have enough to worry about going into having no resolve into a boss? Would you guard into a tank swap? Would you wait to take damage? Would you use like a different brew maybe to go into that? Like, how does that work for Brewmaster Monks with going in and out of high and low resolve? Because you technically can always be taking damage if you don't manage your stagger properly. Loon, what do you...
I would never really guard into a tank swap unless for whatever reason I would get one shot. You're just wasting your guard then. I mean, you're probably getting like 1/6 of the value or something. So you shouldn't do that unless you're like, if you're low from AoE. I mean, if you have to, you have to. Then you can't really help it. But you should probably never guard without decent amount of resolve, or if you're forced to. But you have a Lucy Brew almost guaranteed, which isn't like an amazing mitigation, but you just have it. So you're going to use it when you tank swap.
Sure.
Literally every single time you tank swap, you have at least like 3 stacks of it, I guess. You should probably have a lot more, but... and then generally you have Expel Harm available if you actually get low. And then, I mean, when you tank swap, you shouldn't like taunt and spam like Cake Smash and jab until you're like out of energy. You need to have like some room for healing. But you generally have some kind of like pre-hots with your sense bears and you're ready to go Expel Harms and stuff. So you're pretty good. And as we all know, you're not going to get one shot as a monk, so you're pretty safe, at least for now. I mean, you can just taunt and take 4 hits and be like, oh, I guess I should guard now.
God. So much like room to feel for it. I know that we had a Brewmaster Monk tank in the end of MOP because they were just so good at the same time. And Brewmaster started off really weak in Warlords, and I wonder if they were probably buffed a little too much. The stagger amount went up, base armor amount went up. Obviously, guard is like ridiculous right now, and that's only gonna get stronger. And especially with the extra 5 eye levels we're gonna get on gear coming on, I would imagine Tuesday. I mean, so many tanks have re-rolled and are playing Brewmasters right now, like across the board. Is that too good? Do you...
If Brewmaster is too good.
Yeah. What total?
So, like, basically what happened is there were a series of massive hotfix buffs, like, shortly before Highmaul came out. Because just with the way the Brewmaster spec is, there are a lot of things that kind of seem like a good idea, but if you do them, it's actually, like, a lot worse than if you do things in a different way that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense at first. So a lot of players were just getting trashed in things like challenge modes.
Yep.
Because, like, things like they tell you that the attunement is crit, which I'm sure we'll get into stats later. But it's like, that's actually not the best thing to stack defensively. And a few other things like that where a lot of people were having a lot of problems, and there are some like deep-seated issues that they'd have to rework to make it easier to get in to start playing the spec, but rather than have like 3/4 of the player base just not able to do any of the content on the spec, they just decided to passively buff the spec, which meant that if you are actually playing it like at the highest level you can, it's just brokenly overpowered. But they can't really nerf it, so they're kind of in a weird spot until they can rework a couple things.
Well, that was the same thing. That kind of goes along with monks in general, because Mistweavers were incredibly good at the start of sort of Mist of Pandaria. Then they got nerfed, and they're like, they're okay. And like the same flip-flop has happened again with them and Windwalkers. If you all remember how good Windwalkers were in Highmall, lots of fights were to their strength, sure. But when there's like a 7,000 DPS disparity on an intro tier, that's kind of a big deal. But now they've just been rebuffed, so now Windwalkers are so good right now. If you're progressing, if you're a farm mode guild, you might be like, But if you're progressing right now, Windwalkers are just really, really strong. Unless you get to Blackhand Mythic, you need 7 rogues. But it's a weird thing with monks in general as a class seem to really swing back and forth a lot.
Well, like I play Warrior for Highmall because Monk wasn't really that good on PTR, and well, they got buffed like a week before Highmall, and I'm kind of too late to change or whatever. Yay. Warrior was good anyway for Highmall, and I generally, like last expansion did the same. I played Warrior the first year and I played Monk the last 2. It just seems like Monk, obviously was maybe a little bit overbuffed now, but in general they just scale a lot more with mastery, and just you can kind of like play this like unkillable thing if you play it right. Yeah, my plan for this expansion was just play Warrior and swap to Monk whenever it's broken or whatever.
Right.
And they did overbuff it a bit, but I'm pretty sure it would have still been broken after this tier with just the general gear stuff that you get, like the high mastery levels you get to and stuff.
It's not even just your survivability though; it's the damage as well. If I'm not mistaken, are Brewmasters not the highest DPS tank currently too? I didn't check that specifically because I know that Warrior does a pretty good amount of damage as well. So, but I want to say they're fighting at the top, like Brewmaster versus Prot Warrior at the best damage, because Prot Paladin was just disgustedly just trashed. They just got really gutted for their damage. In a way, it was a little overzealous because now they're like they don't do anything. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the highest DPS tanking is, but
on the DPS subject, actually, the weird thing about Brewmasters is that there are actually like a number of ways you can trade off tankiness for doing extra damage. So the doing a whole lot of damage thing isn't really like an innate thing in the spec, but more like people are intentionally giving up some of their survivability because they have way too much of it. And when you're not dying, like you can't die less than 0 times on a fight, so you might as well just do more damage. And people like starting to stack multi-strike and things which are not very good defensively just to do more damage. So it looks like they're doing a lot of damage, but in reality that's like a side effect of being overpowered defensively.
Yeah.
Like if I play like my defensive build, I'm not gonna be like out DPSing DPSers. But if you go full crit multi-striker or whatever and like really go all in for DPS and still stay alive, which I guess is fine. Not really on progress though, but you can do amazing damage.
Yeah. That's how it sort of was, I think, at the end of MOP, wasn't it? Like, all Brewmasters were just, like, going full crit just to have, like, lol, damage is so good. Yeah.
But back then, it was actually fine in defensively as well, though, because you just healed so much with different things, and it was actually okay defensively as well. I wouldn't recommend it on progress, but I'm sure it would have been fine with crit as well.
What do you think about the tank hierarchy right now, then? Like, if you wanted to put them in an order from strongest to weakest, I guess in survivability, Luun, what would you...
it's them? Monk, then it's like Monk 5 more times probably. Or like, it's not even comparable, honestly. Like, yeah, like I think Monk is just so far ahead. I mean, there's a reason why guilds go from 0 monks Highmall to 2 monks Blackrock Foundry. And I don't think there's a single guild that hasn't killed it with a Brewmaster Monk. Maybe there is, but that would be like silly anyway to not have one. I think the other classes are. I don't really know that much, I guess, because I don't really like pay attention. Because it's just so obvious that monks are better, so I'm not like trying to like see what could work. But I think Warrior and Paladin they're okay. I don't know, but I think Druid's a little bit behind. I'm not sure. And DK seems pretty sturdy as well, actually, for once.
Yeah. What do you think?
No, I'm not really sure about like the ranking like 2 to 5, but it feels like Warrior and Paladin and DK is okay, and Druid might be a little bit behind.
Yeah, I've heard the Druid community. The Druid would be our last tank because they're the weakest right now. My Druid friends that want to come on the show, like, they want to wait as long as they can to see if it gets better. They're in a rough patch right now. But Total, what do you think of the tanking hierarchy?
There's Brewmasters at the top, quite obviously, and then Rogues pressing Feint next.
That's actually true, though. It really is.
That is so true, though. Holy crap.
Warriors, paladins, and death knights are all they're all kind of good at different things, but neither one of them is like by far better than the others. And then you have probably hunters after that, and then guardian druids.
Yeah, hunters. Oh, hunters next best tank. Oh, wow.
Well, they can get a bear themselves, and then they're a hunter also. So
that's true.
Just wait till they can tame Brewmaster Monks. We're gone.
Yeah.
Goodness. Some other little thing about having a Brewmaster Monk, or having monks in general, even having a Mistweaver and a Windwalker, Touch of Death, pretty good, I hear. Pretty good. There's a glyph that makes it pretty good in situations. Like, what kind of situations have really been good? I mean, like the Primal Elementalists on Blast Furnace, I'm sure, you know, Touch of Death, pretty good.
Yeah.
Right?
Was there more to the question? Or?
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, like, what other situations is Touch of Death really good to have? Because, like, I don't think every guild is running with monks in that regard. Maybe one here or whatever. But if you've got, like, 2 or 3, like a Mistweaver, a Windwalker, and a Brewmaster, you have a lot of, like, Touch of Death timing you can get down the Man-at-Arms faster on Thogar. You can kill the transitional beasts on Darmag faster. I mean, you can kill the pillars on Kromog faster, too. Like, once you get to that certain Touch of Death part, it's like, done, right? You're there. And it's a huge chunk of extra damage. I mean, what kind of Touch of Deaths have you gotten, Loon, like, in that regard?
Well, our Orgoger tactic is pretty much revolves around me having 2 stamina trinkets, using Shield Wall, and Rallying Cry to one-shot a box, so he goes the same direction every single time.
What?
So
wow.
So we have like exact amount of rolls and no one takes any damage from anything, and it takes like 20 seconds in phase 2, and it's really like neat and easy. Which we like. I have to use stamina trinkets to get the health. I need to have 800k health with Rallying Cry and Shield Wall, but it's possible. So I guess that's fun.
I never even thought about that. That's insane. Because you want to get your health threshold so high above that makes
because so you can one shot it. You don't need any health or whatever. And other than that, I guess Blast Furnace, as you said, I mean, like dogs on Flamebender, and it's just obvious, like mobs that might need to die quickly but might be behind or ahead. Pillars on Kromog as well. We've probably had some wipes if we wouldn't be able to touch the them and stuff. So it's a good ability. It's not specifically like always good, but on a lot of fights it is really really nice if you have to ever burn something or kill something really fast.
Yeah, sure. What's the normal health threshold differential to activate Touch of Death? Again?
It's 10% or your health, pretty much. If it's at your health, you can use it, or if it's 10% or lower.
10% or lower. Right. Jeez. What about you? Have you abused it total? Are you enjoying the Touch of Death? Do you run with multiple monks, too, that you can sort of time that around?
It's kind of different because Brewmasters have a lot more health than other monks, so like our Touch of Death is just naturally do more damage.
Yep.
But I think it's like one of the most fun abilities in the game. It's like anything that you can imagine where it's like an extra 500,000 damage here would be really nice. You just walk up to something and boop it really quick and it just disappears.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole reason why I brought it up too, is because it's the health pool difference, and as a Windwalker or a Mistweaver, you have less health. Right. So you can abuse the health mechanically, just like Loon just said, double stam trinkets, Rallying Cry. Yeah, okay. It's pretty good.
It worked out pretty well. I mean, it was pretty neat tactic.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Jeez. Yeah. Oh, and faster questing,
so
Blue.
Well, if you ever quest anywhere, like you always like, Touch of Death, it's so nice. But also on like Dharma on spares and stuff, if someone ever like noobs around, you can break them out instantly, which is nice. So it's not really why you play a Brewmaster Monk, but it's certainly like it's a nice plus. Like the other tanks don't really have something, or I guess maybe they have some better like personal DPS cooldowns, but Touch of Death is nice. I really like it.
Something I'd like to add about Touch of Death, though, is just that it has the monk twist on everything, where it's just a little bit harder to use than comparable other executes, in that if you actually try to use it on a boss when you're not tanking, you will almost guaranteed rip aggro off the other tank.
Oh.
Because you do an instant like 500k damage, so you have to be like really careful that it's not like a like a tank swap or something, and then you Touch of Death, and it's like, oh no, my stacks just refreshed and everything, because I didn't realize that 500,000 damage is a lot.
Well, that's true. I mean, threat and damage right now for tanks sort of correlate almost like a 1-on-1. Like your damage equals your threat in that regard. So that would make sense that if you're 96% of your off tank, because you're swapping back around the same aggro with taunts, and all of a sudden 500,000 damage in your face. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I'm going to move us forward into some stats, tier gear, that kind of goofy goober stuff. So we're in Blackrock Foundry now. So we'll keep this on the Blackrock Foundry level. And of course now with the, if you haven't heard about this, that there is a +5 eye level blanket coming to all BRF gear and all difficulties, I would imagine on Tuesday, which is based on napkin math from a viewer of ours, about an 8% nerf to Blackrock Foundry. So yay farm and yay easier progression. I guess it's like an interesting way to nerf the content after it's only been out for about a month-ish. But yeah, so more stats coming. Basically all high mall gear gets devoided because of this stat increase on BRF gear. But are there any situations, first off, in BRF, like fights in general, that you would and suggest highly to use a Brewmaster Monk for? Or any certain mechanics or things that you guys found out that other tanks were not as good at during progression, Loon? That you were
every
like,
fight. Good answer. Or what?
You're so stupid.
Well,
every
it's the
fight.
truth, though. Like,
That's
it's
true,
the
yeah,
truth.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, I guess with the new eye level boost, so our other tank, which plays a paladin, had to play Brewmaster for Blackhand because he's not very good. He can go back to his paladin now and still be
Wow.
fine, I guess. Like we usually joke that if he doesn't die on the kill, it's not a kill, and that's been true on like every kill. So
Right. But every fight, huh? Total, what do you...
not every fight. Maybe Blast Furnace last phase.
Yeah,
It
Blast Furnace
is-
B3.
That's it. The third phase in Blast Furnace is not the best, but you can do
Good
that
DK
fine
for
with
that.
like two externals and you're fine, and the other fights is like just use externals and other people. Like we don't need them. Like there's no
Right.
point.
Yeah. So you're progressing through. You're a little bit behind me, Total, but are you feeling the same way that like is your off tank always dying and you're like, what's going on over there, man? You okay? You alright?
Well, our other tank now plays a Brewmaster, so
Oh my god,
he
you
doesn't
run
die
you run 2 Brewmasters now?
we're basically Paragon.
You're not even gonna fight with it anymore. We do.
Yep.
Well, we were doing Org Origin now a couple weeks ago, and we used the Exorcist raid tools, like the notepad thing, so our tanks can like write, first breath, second breath, third breath, fourth breath, fifth breath, whatever. You put all your like stuff in a row of what cooldowns you need, and they put it in a macro and put it in raid chat. And it's like first breath Sam, nothing. Second breath math, this cooldown, this cooldown, this cooldown. Fourth breath, Sam, nothing. Fifth breath mask. It's like this cooldown, this cooldown, this cooldown. Personal, this like. That's from a paladin standpoint, right? They can take a lot of spell damage wise, but with monks, you guys just put them on yourself, man. Just use them for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I call for the other tank sack just because why not? But I mean, I'm not even using shield wall in phase 1 because we need it for phase 2, so I guess that says enough.
Yeah. Jeez. Now, I don't know if that's a good tank design where you are incredibly self-sufficient, or if it's a little bit too powerful, which is like the mantra of the show right now. But
I think it's down to Stagger, really, like most of the Brewmaster stuff, or Mastery, or whatever. Because, like, your cooldowns aren't specifically overpowered, it's just that you're so good from before that when you pop them, you're just, like, unkillable. I mean, like, Damp and Harm and stuff, like, in a lot of bosses, it's very, very weak. And on some very few encounters, it's very strong, like Iron Maidens, for example, it's probably the best cooldown, because it just literally lasts for 45 seconds.
Right.
Soaks 3 of those big blood ritual things, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess bring Brewmasters and... Yeah,
Bench
can use
all the...
externals for like the raid. Like that's what we do sometimes.
So I guess going off the mantra of last show, where Mortal Strike is the answer, if Blaze Storm's the answer, if not Blaze Storm, it's execute. If not execute, it's reroll Rogue. Sorry. So now for tanking, rather, it's if Brewmaster's not the answer, reroll Brewmaster. If not reroll Brewmaster, bench for tanks.
You can always go Rogue, I guess, or Hunter. Yeah.
Well, you can go Rogue or Hunter, yeah, of course, and you can tank just fine on those. Exactly.
You can get by as a warrior or a paladin right now in pretty much any fight. It's just kind of like there are some fights that is really annoying where they'll just get like one shot by things.
Yep. Oh.
There's not even anything they can do about it. It just happens.
Correct. No,
Yep.
Yep. We've had
Just
many.
let's go Brewmaster. Like I don't know. It's really silly, but
I mean, Just Waits in chat. He can attest to this on our method interview. Even like many times as they had said, "Resco again," because he plays a prot warrior, it was like a thing. Might as well make like an audio macro that Roger could just like plate it in in the TeamSpeak or Mumble. So yeah, happens a lot apparently.
Yeah.
Which is that's a problem I think with other tanks. At the same time, I don't know if tanks should be that fragile. But
I guess they could like buff 5% on the rest and nerf monks a little bit to make it. But
yeah.
I mean, it's not like you can't do it though with like warrior or monk or paladin or something. I mean,
sure.
World first had a warrior, so it's obviously fine. But it's just worse than monk, and then everything just looks so much worse because monks are so strong. That's the problem I think people like, because it's supposed to be hard to like kill the last boss, obviously, and then if you're playing a monk, it's not that hard after all. So I guess. It makes the other ones look worse, while they might actually just be fine, and monks is too good or whatever.
Yeah. So stat priority-wise, you brought this up a little earlier, Total, is that your stat attunement is called Ferment, which is bonus crit, the 5% crit. So with the whole, as tanks have 6 secondaries, I would assume bonus armor is the best. So where do the next 5 fall in to like higher stat priority? Like what's good and what's the worst with the secondary stats, Total?
It's really easy to start with the worst, which is just hands down haste.
Okay.
And that's one of the kind of traps I talked about earlier, is that like haste gives more energy and it makes the rotation feel better, but you're just taking more damage than if you picked any other stat, and you're trying to do more with less. And even if it makes things feel easier, it's really just it's really just not helpful.
Right.
And it's not useful for pretty much anything. Also because it doesn't even help in the damage department, because we have a free Tiger Palm that we just spam every empty global cooldown. So using other abilities doesn't do as much damage as it would on any normal spec, because we just have a free ability to fall back on to always spam.
Sure. So then if haste is the worst, then where do the next ones fall in? Like, are you basically like crit mastery, or like mastery first, or what's the hierarchy there? Like, what should worry about?
Mastery, crit, and multi-strike have this kind of weird relationship with each other, where mastery is by far the best defensive stat of the 3, but it's also the worst DPS stat of the 3. And then crit is kind of half and half, because crit's defensive benefit is it gives elusive brew, but that only helps you dodge, and for most bosses, auto attacks are not what is normally going to kill you.
Right.
And then multi-strike is on like the far end, where it's the most damaging of the stats, and it pops up little orbs, kind of like the healing spheres, where you can heal yourself.
Yep.
But that's also not useful at all on fights with tons of movement, and it's about the same as crit on fights where there isn't a lot of movement, but it's really good damage-wise. So all 3 of them are useful. It's just kind of depending on what you want to do. Like, you can stack Mastery and be immortal, or you can stack Multi-Strike and do more damage than DPS. You can stack Crit and just kind of be in the middle. And versatility is just kind of like in the back, kind of mediocre at everything.
I think you can like take versatility if it's together with the main stat you want. It's like like, okay, it's master versatility, I'll be fine with this. But it's not like, oh my god, yes, let's stack this versatility.
Right. I think, in a weird way, I think all tanks feel that way, because all tanks have healing, and all tanks have damage, and it does both. It's obviously less of both, and it also reduces the damage incoming. So, I guess that kind of works out in that way. I think you have like a versatility master, like you said, not bad. And obviously you want bonus armor in slots you can, right?
I wouldn't not always on trinkets.
Not
like
always?
if you have a master trinket with bonus armor proc, that's obviously fine. But in general, you want it on the 4 slots, or I guess 5 slots. You can have it on or whatever. 6 maybe. Yeah, 6.
Well, if you count weapon, I guess. Yeah.
Well, you can't have bonus armor on weapon unless I missed out on.
Well,
weapon, there's a bonus armor
enchant. Yeah.
Yeah, enchant. Sure.
Yeah. Which that brings me right into weapon enchants. What do you guys... Now, weapon enchants, I should have moved this up in the notes, technically. Brewmasters can two-hand or dual-wield tank. Is there... Like, what weapon enchant do you both prefer? I'll go with Luun first on this one. And is it better to dual wield 2 enchants? Like, is there any benefit for that, or is it just better to have 1 and then go with a 2-hander, Loon?
Well, if I could have 2 enchants, I obviously would, but the 2-hander is better, so you kind of stuck with 1 enchant. But I go for the Blackrock enchant, which procs bonus armor.
Right.
It's not always better because like it procs when you're low health, but what I kind of like my standpoint of tanking is just go for worst case scenario. So just always play and try and like stay alive in a worst case scenario, and then I think the proc when you're going low is much better than like a random crit or master or multi-strike, whatever enchant you would use. It might not be best overall if you're just gonna look at damage taken or damage done or whatever, but it's best in the worst case scenario, in my opinion.
Okay, fair enough. What about you, Total?
Yeah, like you said, bonus armor is by far the best defensive one, just because it's reliable, and the rest of them are all random. If again defense isn't a concern, which farm stuff, we'll be moving on to that. You can go with either like the multi-strike or crit enchant. At that point, I don't think the mastery enchant is very useful, because if you wanted a defensive enchant, you would have just gone with the bonus armor anyways. So
Right.
if you don't want to use bonus armor, then you might as well just do one of the 2 stats that does the most DPS.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's what I was curious about. I mean, so the Blackrock bonus armor will proc when your HP falls below 60%, and then has an internal cooldown so it doesn't keep procking, right? Like any weapon enchant does. Our tanks have actually, in some fights, they take off a lot of gear and then start the fight low, so they actually get the proc on the pull, which is just a DPS thing, right? And it technically will make them a little more survivable on the pull when healers can do a little more damage now, because all of their healers have been buffed in damage. But that's a little optimization. It really doesn't do a whole lot, but I guess that makes sense, because like a random crit or multi-strike proc, whereas if you like weak aura your weapon enchants to like pay attention to when they're up, then you can time things. Well, I guess that works, but because the Blackrock's oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say Blackrock is just really reliable in my opinion. Like you can proc it obviously, like if it's like some ability that takes the whole rate low, obviously it might proc, but in most cases you're actually tanking when it procs and it's actually useful. Sure. Not like I'm always dying when it procs, but it procs and I get the benefit of it when I need it, which is what I want.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's a huge. I think it's a weird, unless you're a tank right now, you might not understand how important the couple of percentage of physical damage resistance on armor is a big deal right now. Because you got to look at how damage comes in over the course of a fight. And if you overall the course of a fight, you can reduce your physical damage intake on that weapon enchant, that's a lot better than having like Keg Smash multi-strike a little more often.
Well, Keg Smash does it quite a lot though, so.
Well, yeah, but you're talking about damage and survivability here.
I'm just kidding. Like,
right.
yeah, if defense standpoints, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
To me, at least, like.
The way of scumbag whoring DPS died in Mr. Pandaria for tanks. They should be a little more focused on.
Oh no, I didn't. There's plenty of them out still stacking their multi strikes and their crits and like, oh, I can't die in this like overgeared state. Like, well, good for you, I guess.
When you get to farm mode, raiders, then worry about that kind of stuff. But when you're progressing, don't be a stupid face. Okay. That's what Loon's talking about right now. He's on farm mode, so you're probably like all full damage oriented.
Oh, I don't care. Like, so,
you don't care. Well, fine.
I play my rogue and I outpace everyone in the guild, so that's fine.
Well, that's fine because your rogue's
you can
amazing.
Check out Twitter for that. Yeah, my rogue is really good. So
yeah, exactly.
Our rogues are pretty bad though, which is kind of sad.
God. So itemization in BRF for Brewmaster Monks, you have a tier 17 set called the Battle Gear of the Somber Gaze. The 2-piece, dodging an attack equals +2 energy. 4-piece, when clearing moderate stagger with purifying brew, you generate 1 stack of elusive brew. Do you have to only clear moderate to get the proc? It can't be heavy? And then
it works with heavy too, just not light.
Moderate or above then. Okay.
Yeah.
And then dodging attack is 2 energy. Is that a big deal? Like, how does the set work out, Loon? Like, what do you think? What set bonus is good?
I don't have the set bonus, but I probably will have the 2 set just because shoulders and gloves have the right stats. But if you're progressing right now and you're thinking about who to give the prot tokens, you don't give them to Brewmaster Monk because they're way better than like hunters and stuff. So in that regard, like you're not really gonna get them on progression unless like you just have enough to go around. But I don't think the 2-set or the 4-set are very good. Like I didn't need them for progression, and I don't think anyone needed them for progression. It's just, I guess if you just had enough to go around, then you could use it because you didn't get something else if it's high item level, or in this case you can get away with items without mastery because you're just so good anyway. But I just went with mastery in every item, and then I got the gloves now from like a coin, and I'll probably pick up the shoulders whenever, and then I'll hopefully get them like with Warforged socket at some point, and then just use the off pieces on the 3 other slots. You can use the 4-piece, I guess, on some fights, but outside of Blackhand, I don't think anyone's hitting you hard enough for that to matter. And also, elusive brew isn't like something that you're like, oh my god, yes, I have my extra 8 elusive brew stacks now. Like I'm invincible.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you can still, like, the worst case scenario, you can still be hit, but mastery will always be there for you. It's your best friend. So
fair enough. So then, total, would you? Chatroom is bringing this up too right now. I guess you go for. I guess not slotting all 5, definitely not. Not even going for the 4-piece. What two pieces would you go for the 2-piece then?
Yeah, the gloves and the legs are good. The shoulders are also mastery multi-strike, I think.
yep.
Those are pretty good too. The only problem with those is that like those 3 tier pieces are on very late bosses. If you're talking like mythic progression, like I'm nowhere near killing those bosses yet. Yet I have these lovely mastery multi-strike gloves off of Beastlord that pretty much everyone kills first, and just he falls over dead. So it's kind of awkward because I would have to downgrade to actually get the tier bonuses. And in the first couple weeks, I had like some normal pieces and heroic pieces that I pieced together for the set just to actually like use it to get some real numbers on what they were doing. But it turned out that I would go like an entire fight and get like 40 energy from the 2-set. It was just awful because
I mean,
you have to like actually be tanking pretty often. It's nice to have, but it's not something where it's like I'd downgrade my gear to go get it.
I mean, because by looking at it on paper, right, the interactions are that you clear Stagger with Chi, you get elusive brew stacks, you use elusive brew because you have more stacks of it to have longer periods of dodge to get more energy to do more Chi building things, right? It looks like it makes sense on paper, but it just looks like that because that's the one thing I guess you'd want to dodge physical attacks to not keep racking up Stagger, because you can sort of really get around magic damage as a monk with if you take Diffuse Magic or if you have timer guards properly. I think it looks good. But as you both illustrate, that it's just kind of like,
Like, if the stats were perfect on all 4 pieces, obviously you'd use it, but it's not. The only reason why I'm going to use 2-set is because the stats they're fine, so why not? Like, sure, I'll take them, but if they were any worse, then I don't see the point, because like Total said, 14 energy is nothing over a whole fight, but it's better than nothing. Like, why not? I guess.
Yeah.
Or it's almost better. It's a little bit better than nothing.
Right. It's looking at these comparing to like prop warrior, prop paladin. Those are both really good.
Yeah.
I believe Blood Decay,
sure.
really good.
But that being said, though, all our off pieces have mastery, so they are mastery multi-strike, which isn't like, it's a little bit less defensive than mastery crit, but I'm happy with that. Like that, it's mastery for every slot, and I'll run that pretty much.
Okay. What about trinket layouts? Which 2 are there 2 optimal? Or can you take a whole bunch of different ones and kind of like wiggle them around? Because do you get 5 choices?
You get 3? 3?
There's only 3
unless you count Foundry.
Well, Foundry, I'm saying. You can bring over the Highmall ones.
It's 3 in each, like 6 in total, I guess.
Right, exactly. So like what ones are like what are you using right now most of the time, Luun? What do you suggest?
Well, I mean, the stamina ones are pretty like useless for a monk from both Highmall and Foundry, so the 2 other ones, if you're full Highmall gear, use the 2 other ones. If you're full Foundry gear, use the 2 from there. Like the trinket from like the Twin Ogrons, the pole, whatever it's called, it's like as mastery on use, which is kind of better than armor on use, because mastery you can take less damage. I guess technically take the dot, but that one, I guess you could argue for some bosses versus the Foundry trinkets, but with the item level increase coming up, and just generally they both have mastery and bonus armor. Like all 4 trinkets have those combinations, just different types of like procs and stats and on use and stuff. But you just, if you have both Foundry trinkets, just use them. Like they're really good. I would prefer if there was mastery on use rather than armor on use, but it doesn't really matter. Like it's fine.
Yeah. What about you, Total? What do you think of the same thing for trinket hierarchy there?
Yeah, it's kind of weird because the high level pieces are kind of stuck in the past, and after the eye level increase on the Foundry gear, like your mythic Foundry trinkets will be 15 eye levels higher. So like the Blast Furnace Door, which is just a bonus armor with a random mastery proc, is going to be 15 eye levels higher than that Pole's Blinded Eye from Twin Ogron.
Right.
I haven't looked at the numbers yet, but it's something like 150 passive bonus armor that you're shorting yourself just to get to use at that point. So just the pure eye level difference would probably trump it.
Okay.
And that's kind of the problem with the crafted trinket too. It's just that it's okay at its item level, but realistically, you're going to go past that item level. So at some point, they just become irrelevant.
I can see like uses for Pulse, the mastery on use trinket, if there was like a fight like Blackrock where you wanted to like literally have like 95% mastery or something at like for a certain interval of time. Then I'm going to keep it in my bank for sure. But yeah, if you have the 200 trinkets, just go for that. It's the best for most fights, and I did use stamina trinkets for Gorger, but that's not to recommend unless you want to touch a death something.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, double stamina trinkets, rally and cry, like a million HP. Yeah, of course. Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that just to quell the whole. I mean, obviously, if you're gearing up, you kind of got to only have so many options. But if you're aiming for ones you want, then it's the Blast Furnace and Hans and Franz, you'd say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ideally.
And then, of course, if you want to take the beating heart, the pulsating beating heart from Chroma, you can go for some DPS. I mean, is having an agility trinket not terrible? If you're going for damage,
it's pretty terrible. For damage, I guess it's okay. Right. I haven't really looked into like what's best for damage when you're playing Brewmaster, but for defensive purposes, that trinket would be horrible. I guess if you find some DPS trinket on mastery, it could be like arguable, but the tank trinkets are usually a lot better.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Like the tank trinkets actually give you more to survivability. Would they also, in that argumentative point, if it's like a bonus armor trinket, would that actually give you more damage than an agility trinket? Or do you know? How does that work total?
Agility is a stat just because of the 5% raid buff. Because one bonus armor gives 1 attack power and one agility also gives 1 attack power, except you have a 5% raid buff. So agility gives slightly more attack power than bonus armor does, but you're trading away having a lot more armor for like random dodge, which might be very slightly more damage, but you lose a lot of survivability to go with agility.
Okay.
It's like I mean Butcher or something, like a fight like that where like everyone's wiping to enrage. Those kind of fights you could arguably like go for like some kind of like gain 2k DPS but lose 15% survivability or something if you just have to kill it. But on a normal fight when it isn't down to like 200k 300k wipes all the time, then just don't use an agility trinket, please.
Okay, just I wanted to quell that because I didn't know if Brewmasters out there were like, I'm gonna get agility trinkets because they do more damage, and it's okay. So that's fair. That quells that pretty well. But anything else then on the whole eye level thing? We've kind of talked about it a little bit now, though. Before we go on a little bit of the commercial break in the show here. So, eye level impact. Is there are you gonna be taking just the higher eye level stuff for Brewmaster? Because like kind of everything, like you said earlier, kind of all works as long as it doesn't have haste on it. It's all pretty good. Right? So I guess just go with the higher eye level stuff?
Yeah, pretty much. I have one haste item. We're just using it because it has like a socket and mastery, so it's like, yeah, this is good. But you generally just want to have whatever has mastery on it, but everything with mastery on it in Foundry has multi-strike or crit, I think, maybe like one item versatility, so it all works out. Like, there aren't really any real choices to be made, other than weapon, I guess, if you want to have more DPS or more survivability.
Right. Total, what do you think?
Yeah, things like haste, you need something kind of big, like 15 eye level upgrade, or like sockets or something to warrant taking a haste piece. But the other thing that is sometimes comes up is people asking about, when is it ever okay to have something that doesn't have bonus armor on it, like a ring or something like that? And at that point, you would need something really crazy, like 30 or 40 item level upgrade to use any other secondary stat instead of bonus armor, just because it's basically as strong as agility is.
All right. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I think they're trying to solve this Heimal Blackrock Foundry back and forth eye level gear thing with the +5. I never thought it was too big of a problem from a DPS standpoint because you kind of like know a lot of secondary stuff makes better. And then, of course, your primary stat as a DPS is really, really, really important. Agility, strength, and intellect are very, very powerful. So taking a 10 eye level downgrade to lose like 60 is like, you can't do that on trinkets anyway. So they're kind of making it easier. You just gear Blackrock Foundry. There may be a couple of pieces if you have like a mythic Warforged socketed white whale from Highmaul. It might stick around for a little while. But it's also a nerf to Blackrock Foundry, though.
Yeah, I have 2 items from Highmaul right now, and I have the Foundry like equivalent item, like the ring and boots, I think. But they have socket from Highmaul, and then it's just 2 like, and they're also like better itemized because they have higher mastery. So I don't upgrade them before the patch, I guess. But I probably will though when the patch hits, because then 15 item levels, it should make it worth it, even though it's no socket and slightly worse optimized stats. Even though they both actually have mastery, but it's still like, yeah, the gem is pretty big, like more mastery and. Well, yeah, the way mastery stacks is just the more you have, the better it is, and yeah.
Right. Gotcha. Well, cool. Well, I'll move us along then real quick for a little bit of an in-show, little breakerino right now and tell you guys about some things behind the scenes, some communities you might not have known about, and if you are a monk in chat right now, any monk, really, Mistweaver, Windwalker, or Brewmaster, there is an IRC channel you can go join. It's right here. Information on top of the screen. It's through the Coldfront network on the irc.coldfront.net, and it's hashtag Peak of Serenity. You can go right there to the URL. Let me bring this down real quick for you to get the URL right there. And then you can log right in to their IRC. You can do this through any IRC client, of course, if you have the right server address and, of course, the hashtag for the Peak of Serenity. If you want to talk to some awesome monks of all shapes and sizes about monk stuff, go check out Peak of Serenity. Super awesome. If you have curiosities about gear and gear optimization, or if you have never really used combat logs before but want to give it a try, you can go over to AskMrRobot.com. They have the gear optimizer, which helps you for tools for optimizing your gear. They have their awesome info-graphical combat logs. They have their in-game add-on that helps you use the combat log stuff. They have the team optimizer, where you can like make sure you have all the raid buffs and things and stuff like that, and then you can get trinket optimization and options here as well. Just load your character up on AMR and go to town. Super awesome stuff. Their combat logs are great. If you are like scared of combat logs, like Warcraft logs, if there's too much going on for you, then you should try this for your guild. It's very, very user-friendly in a way. Obviously, if you want more detailed information, go to Warcraft logs. But if you want combat logs for your first time, right here on Mr. Robot. And of course, we're still updating our website in the background here. But if you've missed anything and you want to know more about FinalBossTV, you can head over to FinalBoss.tv. You can submit questions. You can be a guest on the show, possibly. You can check out our background information, our links to our YouTube, where all of our archived episodes are. If you want to listen to the show as a podcast only, just an audio-only version right there. Our art and apparel store is right there. And of course, we had our method interview just a little while ago. You can buy this on a shirt. Oh my God, so... But yeah, you can buy this on a shirt. Information right down here. And of course, directly support the show and help us out. And we appreciate all that support you guys have given us. If you have any questions, of course, for our guests, we'll be doing a little bit of an after show today after the main show's over. So if you have questions, you can ask them in chat right now, of course. But if you have questions for our guests, you can ask in the after show shortly. But let's jump right back into it. Let's go talk about some talents and stuff, gentlemen. Ready for some talented discussion?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to bring up level 100 talents on the screen here for Brewmasters. You're looking at Soul Dance, where you're now able to shrug off even spells, such as that 30% of your normal stagger amount works against Majok damage. Chi Explosion, which is, I call it GG Explosion myself. It's just too good, too versatile. If it is for you guys, we'll talk about that in a minute. It's a Chi builder. You can use 4 Chi to AoE everything around you, purify your stagger damage. You gain shuffle for 2 seconds plus each 2 ki consumed. It's a 40-yard range and it deals damage and it replaces your blackout kick. And then you have Serenity, aka Super Saiyan mode. 90-second cooldown where you go into an elevated state of mental and physical serenity for 10 seconds, and while in this state, all chi consumptions are instantly refilled. So how do these stack up against each other? Is there a lot of swapping you can do with these, or is it basically just like Chi Explosion, all the things? Total, what do you got for math on this before I go with Luun?
Oh, I have literally written pages about these three talents.
Right?
Soul Dance is only really useful if the entire fight is magic damage. Like, I think Korog was the only time this entire tier where anyone really even considered using it.
Okay.
So it's kind of a one-off thing. If we ever run into like Lei Shi again from Terrace of the Endless Spring, everyone will rejoice about Soul Dance, but otherwise it's kind of meh. And then Serenity and Chi Explosion are, another one of those really big just trade-offs of survivability for damage, where Chi Explosion does a lot of damage, but it locks you into a set rotation,
Right.
whereas Serenity gives you a lot of flexibility and a lot of free chi to just play with and do stuff with and purify all the time.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sort of sense. I mean, you're not gonna... You gain some damage, I would assume, from Serenity, but I guess you'd also probably gain a lot of defensive timing, whereas Serenity is not only a DPS benefit, but also a defensive benefit, too. Whereas, like you said, Chi Explosion is sort of... You get the 4, you use 4. Get the 4, use 4. Can that be a problem with, like, trying to time Purifying Brews and stuff? Or I guess you would just use your at least 3 plus Chi, right? Would you just not use Purifying Brew anymore ever? How does that work?
You wouldn't really use Purified that much with Chi Explosion. You kind of have to, you have to see the future a little bit and kind of
Right.
plan ahead with your resources. Because once you use a Chi Explosion, okay, you're gone. You have 0 Chi now. And you have to start from the bottom again. So you have to make sure that like now is the time you want to use it, and that you won't need to use it again for the next little while. And if you don't use at least a 3 Chi Explosion, if you only do the 2 one, that's the same as Blackout Kick, but with a little extra damage, so you're not actually really getting much of anything from the talent at that point. So you kind of need to use it at 3 for the free Purifies, or 4 for AoE damage.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can make Purifying really hard, and that's kind of the difficulty of it, that it locks you into Purifying only when you can build up to like 3 or 4 Chi.
Interesting. Luun, what do you
Yeah,
think?
I'd say Chi Explosion is too much of a trap for like hardcore progression. It's obviously has its uses. So, like a fight doesn't do any damage, and you're never going to be in like danger. I guess you could play it, but I think like you can't really like have like a Chi Explosion ready to go and a God ready to go. You know what I mean? Like you just you have to prepare like maybe 10 seconds ahead of time if you want to like do something specifically. I think it just traps you too much. It's obviously usable in some fights with like adds into like Thorgar. I'm sure you could use it just fine, and other fights with adds if you really want to get that extra damage in there. But I don't think it's worth it from a defensive point of view. Serenity is just it's just so much better. You just pop it and you just get like 45 seconds to shuffle or whatever.
Yeah.
And even also later on in the fight, you pop it and you can purify all the time. You can guard for free. When you're using it, obviously you have kind of free energy because you're just pressing shuffle, 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 and expel harm or whatever. Or guard or yeah. So Serenity is really good. You just gives you the I guess the thing that maybe Monk lacked the last expansion, like the first tier, you didn't have like enough gear, and you were kind of using like haste and stuff, and
Yep.
people were experimenting. And with Serenity, you kind of like when I was looking at like beta talents and stuff, like okay, this is gonna be good because you can actually like skip that whole like gap of okay, Monk isn't usable because it just lacks energy regen, it lacks Lucifer regen, it lacks everything because of gear. But with Serenity, you can skip that point of gearing up or whatever you want to call it.
Right. Well, that makes
Oh,
sense.
and Soul Dance, like I haven't even spec that ever. I like it though.
Yeah.
Like I like it. I think it's a good talent, but it's just if Last Furnace was like a big boss or something with
Yeah.
with just like him, then I would definitely use it there. So it's one of the things that we maybe lacked in the past, like magic damage reduction. So it's nice, but if we either need some more, or yeah, we'll see. Maybe there's some fight in the new raid instance that you can use it on. It's a nice option, I guess. I'm happy with it.
Because my curiosity, looking at Soul Dance, though, is that yes, it makes your Stagger can then work with magic damage. 30% of your normal amount can help with magic damage. But is magic damage ever really a problem for Brewmaster, though?
It's the only problem, really. Like if it's constant.
Right, if it's constant, of course. Like if it's just like a
It
breath.
has to be constant. Yeah, breath is
Yeah,
just
you're just like
any type of like breathing abilities is just super easy. Like
Yeah,
the flame bender dogs and stuff. It's just
correct. Yeah, you're like
like
guard
oh,
one.
you just breathe on me. I didn't
diffuse
even
one.
notice like through my guard or whatever. Like
Yeah.
it's really easy.
Yeah, I don't think there are really any like because you need like a saffron style encounter to make it a big deal. You need like continual pulsing, like crazy AoE,
like stacking up magic damage, for example, or just constant. As long as it's constant, you're gonna have issues after like a certain amount of time with no guards or no shield walls and stuff, because the huge magic is like 5 seconds and then doesn't really do anything versus like that kind of boss. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you basically you argue the point that I guess Chi Explosion is like your. I guess you can use it on if you're more comfortable and you want to do more damage, but otherwise Serenity is your best bet right now.
Yeah, especially defensively. Like you can use Chi Explosion on a lot of fights if you want to reduce more damage, no problem. But you just have less options. Like you might be times where you can't guard, or you can't purify. Even though I guess you'll purify enough, but you just limit yourself. But if you have the gear, if you have the raid, like if your raid's really good or something, I don't know, your healers, then I'm sure you'll be fine. I just wouldn't recommend it on progression if you're a little bit under geared, or if you're a Blackhand and stuff. I would definitely not recommend it, for example.
Right. Well, that's the thing too, is because Blackhand's Phase 3 sort of has that, like you could use Soul Dance there, but you also probably just get better use of Serenity because you can probably use it on 2 of the 4 smashes you deal with. So probably even then, just a better use of it is still Serenity. Like you could, it's almost like it feels like a, like the problem that sort of happens with certain talents. Like 2 were good for any situation, and the 3rd one is like just not better at any of them ever, but it's just not bad. It's just never better than the other 2 options.
Sure.
So, yeah. There's a lot more going on in your talent tree though that really sort of.
Yeah, I don't think the last talent trees are ever really. I mean, obviously, Explosion versus Serenity is like the big thing, I guess, because it's like a new thing. But
of course,
the other talents are, I think, or they don't offer more impact, but they're probably more swapped around, I guess, rather.
Yeah. So your tier 15 is looking at Celerity and Tiger's Lust and Momentum. Now, are these just kind of like based on the encounter, or like personal preference, or is there anything that really in here that works well? I guess Momentum might be it sounds kind of trappish to me. I mean, Tiger's Lust to Celerity both seem like they're pretty good. What do you think total? It's just like a grab bag for your movement tier, or is there like any one that really shines out?
You can kind of use any of them if you feel like it. Like none of them are game breaking or game making really, except in some situations where you need to like clear a route with Tiger's Lust or something like that.
Of course.
Overall, Momentum is a little weaker than the others because it's only like it only provides the same distance if you do this cheeky thing where you roll once to get the 10-second movement speed buff, and then you roll again just at the end of it to stack it up to 2 and refresh it.
Right.
But if you don't do that, you cover a lot less distance than if you use any of the other 2 talents. So the only time it's really useful is in like long distance running situations, like Blade Lord from Heart of Fear or something. Or like a corpse run, or like kiting around an entire room like a garage or something. I used it on a garage to kite, but that was about it. I wouldn't really use it anywhere else.
Yeah, like I think the extra roll talent, I don't know what it's called, I can't remember, but I guess I used that at some points, some fights, but the Tiger's Lust is generally what I go for, because you can also give it to other people if for whatever reason they're in trouble. If they're kiting something like on Blackhand again, Phase 2, if you're kiting that like speed demo, Tiger's Lust is like, sometimes I give it to the guy kiting, for example, or I can use it on myself. It's more flexible. And it doesn't like, I don't like having stuff tied into roll, because you can't really roll while tanking a boss, but you can pre-Tiger's Lust. So it's a lot better in my opinion. It shouldn't really be a question, to be honest.
It doesn't list it in the ability that you could actually cast on other people though. It just says requires monk 20-yard range, increases movement speed by 70% for 6 seconds, and removes all roots and snares. But it can be cast on other people, because we used to use Tiger's Lust on, again, it's back to Heroic Lei Shen, on our warrior who didn't have a movement speed increase. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. Okay.
Sure.
How about we're looking at level 30 now? Now 30, and I guess 45, your chi-oriented one, and then this one is sort of like your damage healing hybrid one with your Zen Chi Burst, Chi Wave. Do you guys both use like a crazy, ridiculous, like target yourself, then target someone else Zen Sphere macro? That I guess is the new hotness because Zen Sphere got buffed recently. I mean, total, do you have one?
I just have 2 buttons. One that Zen Spheres myself, one that Zen Spheres my focus, who is just about always the other tank, and I just alternate the 2.
Okay. What about you, Lou?
I have the same 2 buttons. I'm probably going to change the second one to like mouse over because I figured it's probably better to have it on range at some points. But in generally, it's just have 2 buttons, right, or one, whatever you prefer. I mean, it's like it's not that hard to manage.
Now, is that like the best choice? Is Zen Sphere now? Is it just the most versatile one? Because I know that Chi Wave breaks CC first off, so you can't even use it on certain fights, and then it also like doesn't really do much anymore. I guess with the buff to Zen Sphere. And I guess, can you even use Chi Burst as a tank? Have you ever really used it before?
Yeah, oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's great on some encounters. If you need burst healing or burst damage, it's good. But
sure.
We were kind of past those encounters when the buffs came in, and generally, I don't really need like the burst on the tank to beat ads usually. So I just play whatever is like safest for me.
Okay. So Zen
but it's good. It's an option. But yeah. But the sense per detonation, specifically when you drop below 35% health or whatever it is really good. You can like crit for like 70, 80k and stuff, which is a lot of health actually for that tier, especially because Chi Wave. It's free and it's safe. It's like 35% health and it procs and it heals people around you as well. So if there's any kind of like AoE fight, like back to Blackhand phase 1, I mean it doesn't need for a lot, but it's still like 10k health to the people around me, which is, I mean, why not, or whatever it is, 20k maybe.
But again, yeah, it's free. It doesn't cost energy. It doesn't cost chi. It doesn't cost anything. It's just a 10-second cooldown. So pretty powerful. We brought up, of course, we bring up the chi talents now. Total, I'll bring up with you first with how the math works in here. Because I guess apparently, like, Power Strike is like a no-no for, like, everyone else. But apparently it's not too bad for Brewmaster. And Ascension should be just like removed, apparently. And then Chi Brew is if you're, paying attention and can control your own chi. So where does the power lie in your 45s for Brewmaster right now?
So yeah, numerically Ascension is just by far the worst. It has the same impact as Haste does, where it makes things feel a little nicer, but at the end of the day, everything is just harder because you're working with less than if you just used something else that gave more. And the whole fact that it gives energy and so directly chi doesn't really translate into much. It's like an extra rushing Jade Wind every like 30 seconds or something like that.
Right.
It's not very good. And then Power Strikes obviously gives the most chi, because Chi Brew is a lot longer cooldown.
Sure.
But it's not really very controlled because it just comes up every 15 seconds. I like to use Power Strikes with Chi Explosion because it helps get to that 3 chi level and 4 chi level a lot more. Instead of having to keg smash and jab twice, you just keg smash and jab once and then you're at 4.
Okay.
And then I find Chi Brew works a lot better with Serenity because you're not really worried about how much chi you have with Serenity, just because you have so much shuffle up time from it that you're not looking to constantly spend chi. And it's also nice to just have some chi on demand and the Elusive Brew, in case you screw something up and it's like, oh no, I need to guard right now and I don't have any chi, because it is the only 30-second tank cooldown aside from Death Knight's Rune Tap that does actually cost resources. It's not like free like Divine Protection is.
Right.
So it's nice if you didn't plan ahead or something unexpected happens and you can just pop Chi Brew and then guard anyways.
Yeah, it looks like there's... Oh, go ahead, Loon.
No, I agree. Like I used the same. I used Chi Brew and everything, but I also use Serenity and everything, so it just works well together. I do miss my 5th Chi though. I really do. Like from Ascension, playing like 2 years with that or whatever it is. Right. I do miss it, but I guess it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really do that much. But it was just nice, and you kind of like, it's clunky to go from 5 to 4. You like keg smash on 3, and it's like, oh yeah, I forgot, and yeah. But generally just Chi Brew or Power Strikes, depending on the counter or what you're playing, I guess, in the last talent.
It looks like there's an interesting interaction between Chi Brew and Serenity where you can kind of like... You can almost like... You can dump your Chi, double brew right into Serenity, right? And you have your 4 the whole time you're in there. And then after you're coming out of Serenity, you're gonna wait on your Chi Brew to come back up. But it's sort of like they line up a little well in that regard, where you can go in with either 4 or 2. So you can like you can build up 2, hit a brew, go into Serenity to have 4, or hit both brews to go right into Serenity with the 4. So it kind of seems like an on demand. I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend going in with 4 because I think it's just keg smash during Serenity as well.
Oh,
Like you
okay.
don't like not like it's like a big deal, but just yeah, you're gonna waste two cheating in my opinion at least because it just does more damage and you don't need that extra 6 seconds of shuffle ever.
Sure. Okay.
At current like yeah. So I always just keep keg smashing on cooldown pretty much. But I mean I guess you could try and like make it so you keg smash right before and right after, and there might be like some setups like that. But yeah, chi brew is generally like the safe option, I guess. It offers, yeah, if you always have one stack, for example, you can always like pop it for a free guard, or even for 5 elusive brew stacks, which might be underrated in a lot of scenarios because 45 dodge or whatever it is. I mean, it is almost like 50%, so 50-50 chance of extra chance of staying alive or not taking a hit rather.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, elusive brew. It's weird looking at chi brew. You also get the chi and elusive brew stacks. You can get 4 chi and 10 stacks of elusive brew, whereas power strikes every 15 seconds. You just can get an additional chi from your jab, spinning crane kick, expel harm, crackling j lightning, whichever. So it's interesting. Or of course you'll make a chi sphere. So there's interesting interactions there. I see with being as a tank. You think you can kind of go like Power Strikes, Chi Explosion, or Chi Brew, Chi Explosion, or Chi Brew, Serenity? You have your options there. Your 75s are very much like extra tank cooldowns here between healing elixirs, dampen harm, and diffuse magic. I guess just pick and choose based on the encounter. I mean, if there's magic damage coming in, would you diffuse? If there's dampen harm for like big physical, is there any choice for healing elixirs though? Does that just maybe like the set and forget it kind of talent? How does these work out? Luun, what do you think about the 75s?
Dampen harm. Like I think diffuse magic is like it's good on like very very few specific abilities. The problem with it is just like for example on the dogs on Flame, whatever he's called, the guy with all the dogs.
Flamebender, yeah.
Yeah, that guy. Like people are probably thinking like, oh my god, diffuse magic is gonna be sick. But if you just go dampen harm, you can just dampen harm 2 of the breaths, and there you go. You're not gonna die. So dampen harm is kind of like stronger if diffuse magic isn't required. Like if you don't need like a night reduction, dampen harm is going to be better on a lot of magical attacks. Dampen harm is okay. Like a lot of fights, it either goes off too fast or it doesn't go off at all, which is an issue. But it's always going to be good on those big hits. Like there's never any like big hits that it won't work on, So that's always good. I guess in some fights you might feel like you pop it and like 3 melee attacks later it's off, which is going to be an issue in some fights. But in general, I think they have good use, both diffuse magic and dampen harm. Healing elixirs, it's usable if it's like a physical fight that doesn't hit hard, like Butcher, I guess he hits really fast, but not maybe as hard. So dampen harm won't have like a really good use, then the healing elixirs probably be better. But in general, I don't think you should use that a lot because there's generally one big attack on every fight that you need to like reduce, or you should reduce because why take more damage?
Because you can gain healing elixirs obviously to drink a brew cooldown when you're below 35% health to trigger it. So, because it can proc by itself, or you can trigger it when you drink a brew. I mean, when injured, does that just mean like when you're below 30%, when you're in that execute range?
No. It just means that you won't proc if you full health.
Oh, okay, right. You have to have
So it won't be wasted, because then it would obviously be horrible.
Right, of course. And it's an 18-second internal.
I think it procs 35% by default. I think that's what it says. Like if you go below 35, it procs on its own, and if you are above that, or I guess below, above that, then it will proc based on your brews or whatever it says. So.
Anything to add for your 75s total? What do you think?
No, it covered pretty much everything. It's really just dictated by the fight. It's not really like a choice there at all. You just like one of them is always objectively the best choice for each fight. And
sure, but that's the whole point of talent trees. Which, if you've been here on other episodes of the class discussion, sometimes classes don't have any choices at all. Like Blood DK, I think their choice is a little better now than it was on the show, but still, it's like it's very cookie cutter for certain classes. So it's good that you all, both in Australia, that you have at least choices here.
Well, I will say though, I don't think I've used diffuse magic on any fight in Foundry. I just use dampen harm and everything. I think on Blast Furnace, you can like argue for it in the last phase, but it's just so short and it's a dot, so I don't know. Like, yeah, I think you can probably find some uses in certain fights, but in general, there's no like specific magic ability in Foundry that you have to like watch out for. It's just all physical damage everywhere. Obviously, like I can explain the flame bender dogs and stuff. I guess people would maybe like fall into a trap there and like, oh, I'll just diffuse magic this, but you can pretty much just dampen harm. Like the first one, you don't need to do anything, and then just dampen harm and guard together. The next two, for example, and you'll be more than fine. You won't even like lose your guard. So it's super safe.
Interesting. Right. Gotcha. Anything for 90 talents you want to like touch on? I mean, is Chi Torpedo a trap? Do you guys want to just take Zhuen? Because I guess Rusting Jade Wind is probably a lot of energy to work around as being a tank. I guess you can take it if you're, AoEing, Darmech maybe, certain situations. But anything to talk on level 90s? Pros and cons? Totally want this one? Go for it.
I don't know. It's just Zuen is just free damage. Doesn't really do anything other than that.
Right.
Whereas Rushing Jedwin sometimes, even if you don't want or like care about AoE, like I don't know if I like Blast Furnace, the AoE is not really important, but
Right.
sometimes I'll just take it anyways because it makes picking things up easier. Because spinning Crankick is difficult to use.
Yeah, because you're locked into the spinning Crankick when you're spinning, so yeah.
Yeah, like I have on my leg sweep macro like a cancel aura, spinning crank kick just so I can like heal and stuff. Cause yeah, like I use like Radiant Jadewin if it's a fight where I have to pick up ads and I don't want to like time my kick smashes perfectly. I just want to like play it safe, if you know what I mean. Like just focus on other things and just always like have an available tool to pick up mobs. But generally, if like unless it's like AoE all time, Tiger's gonna be better because you can always use it for bursts and stuff. Like a lot of places where I just save my Tiger for like over a minute just because it's gonna do a lot of damage in points where it's really needed, like everyone's saving their clones and stuff. So Tiger is generally the way to go, and then I use Jadewin on a few fights just because it like makes my life easier, and the DPS requirements might not be that tough. So
okay, fair enough.
And Chi Torpedo we used on Magera. That's it.
Yeah,
just
that's what you guys talked about.
Raid healing, some raid healing there. Yeah, that's it.
Exactly. I'll do glyphs real quick, and then there's a little bit to remember. You just posted in the Skype chat. How about anything? Are there any specific glyphs that you would suggest for certain encounters or certain like all the times? Well, I have Touch of Death sitting up here, but that's obviously situational in the same regard. Might be a little better for DPS to have this because it doesn't cost chi, but I don't know. Glyphs, major ones that are really important total?
Expel Harm is just mandatory all the time. Like you can't not take the glyph of Expel Harm because it makes it cost 5 less energy when you fall below 35%. And just none of the other glyphs come anywhere close to giving extra resources or anywhere near that much extra healing. So it's just one of those things that you stick in your glyph slot and then you forget about it for the rest of the expansion.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Anything else?
Most of the other ones are all really kind of like flavorful and like
Right.
a lot of those are real choices where it's like do I want to keg smash a little further away for movement things, or would I rather just move faster with things like rapid rolling or there are things like Fortuitous Spheres, which is not very good, but you can choose to have a little bit of extra healing, but it's never really like you have to have this, or it's hard to even measure how much healing it does because it's just not very much.
Yeah, because you have the option. Yeah, because I mean you can like Fortifying Brew, possibility things. You have Guard, the situational ones for tanking, I guess.
I usually just run like Expel Harm obviously, and then just like Kick Smash and send med. Just kind of I like to be able to move, and if I send med, if for whatever reason I send med and I accidentally press something, and I don't want it to cancel because then I'll probably die because I'm probably trying to cheese something. And I just like the Kick Smash thing. It's just like it just feels nicer than the other options. Like the extra healing sphere thing is like, I guess that's better than Keg Smash if you really want to like optimize on like Butcher or something.
Right.
But I never like remember in the periods where I'm like, oh my god, where did that extra healing sphere drop? Let me find it. Like it's alright. I mean, I've used it in the past just because like I know it's like does something. But in general, you have a lot of options. You can pretty much just pick whatever you like. I think the Shield Wall Glyph is not needed and not really any point using that either.
Yeah, because you take
doesn't really help at all for anything.
Yeah, because I mean the Fortifying Brew power in it lies, I think, honestly, in the actual extra health, and losing 10% of that probably Isn't that
Well,
good to...
that's not true though. But
No? Okay.
it's just no. It's all about the damage reduction. This extra stagger. So
actually, that's true. I guess that's true too.
yeah, it's
I'll say like a monk in the damage
a lot
reduction.
a lot of things in there. So you might miss some things, but
Yeah. Okay.
I guess you would technically take less damage with the glyph, but you would have less health. So it would like it doesn't really do anything honestly. Like it's pretty much the same. I think most people ran it in Miss Pandaria just because like why not? But I don't know. I don't see any point running it now. At least like maybe Total has anything on that. But
well, Blue puts in chat losing 10% health is actually a loss in touch of death damage.
Yeah, I see people doing that on like streams and stuff to just pop the shield wall to do more damage on touch of death. It's like, is this what the classes come to? Like,
right.
Well, you don't need it, so might as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's sad. Or I guess actually touch of death glyph is pretty good on like single target fights like and stuff because it's just why not again? Why not? But on
if you're only gonna use it once,
if there's ever any fights with ads and stuff, you don't really want to use it because you probably want to touch of death like several things
multiple times. Yeah, exactly. That's why I was wondering if it's more of like a DPS's decision if they're taking it once for them. They don't want it to have to cost energy when they're going down the row of trying to spam abilities. A lot of energy to just dump into that. So if it only use it once in a fight, like Butcher, like you said, yeah,
I've used it on a few fights, but it's more like in Heimel where there's more like single fights and stuff. And obviously, 3G might not always be easily available to you. Like I remember, for example, on Orgorger, when I'm doing that like big stamina trick, when I'm tanking like before phase 2, I can't obviously use my chi because I have to have 3 ready. So there it would have been nice, but obviously the phases aren't 3 minutes apart, which the glyphs makes touch of death on a cooldown. So you can't use it there if you want to do it every phase.
Okay.
But I would have used it there if it's only one phase, for example, so I don't have to worry about always having enough chi, because you can't guard or you can't like purify enough or whatever. But yeah, it obviously works out because I know that I have to save chi, so I just play around that.
So you wanted to bring up, before we get into a little soapboxing time, you wanted to bring up how the Ox statue works? I guess is that a point of Brewmaster talk right now? How the new statue interaction works, Luun?
Oh yeah. I guess we kind of forgot about that before, but it's obviously changed from like healing people, like overpoweredly healing people, like with like 600k guards, Mr. Pandaria, which was like pretty cool, I guess. But now it's like I guess it's like an improved version of my off tank, I guess. Because he actually like picks up mobs and stuff. Yeah, it pulses threat. Is it like 30 yards range or something? Or it feels like it's like 100 because it picks up literally everything. But you can do some new tricks with it, like picking up the dogs on Flamebender, for example, and they can soak a breath. But obviously that adds the risk of someone standing in front of it and stuff, and it's not really required. Like I explained earlier how to do it, just stand behind and guard, and it's pretty simple. But it's a really nice tool for a lot of fights. Like Dharmak, you just put it up somewhere, and you can taunt off it and bring the mobs into you, or you could just tank the boss next to it. You don't ever have to do anything, just replace it if it dies. So it has a lot of good uses. I think it's like one of the best tools for Brewmaster tanking in terms of like, picking up mobs and just generally like controlling ads, I guess.
Am I missing something here? Is your Ox statue named Dave?
I don't think mine is, but I think the more champion community is called theirs.
Oh, they're called Dave.
Yeah. I think that was actually the Blue that started that. He started calling his Dave.
Okay.
And now everyone calls it Dave.
Oh, okay. So why is that must be pretty powerful. Does it go off of your stats then? I would assume it works off of your.
It has half of your max health.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just has some health. It does nothing else. Just does threat and has health.
Interesting.
Sadly, can't heal it. I don't think. But you can
I
just
think the
replace
threat has something to do with your stats, like.
Really? Oh, well, I mean, I haven't really noticed. It just does way too much threat anyway, so it's like, take away your stat sheet, like, it's aggroing me instead of to the tanks, like, so I have to have, like, a cancel macro for it.
That's actually, yeah, like, a really big part of the statues. It is really useful, but, again, it has that monk twist on it where you have to go the extra step to actually use it, which is, you kind of have to have, like, a macro that, I forget what it is at the moment, but it's some obscure thing because it's treated as a totem to like actually dismiss it instead of having to click totem button.
Yeah, it's something weird.
Yeah, because it can actually cause problems if it, pulls things to the wrong spot. Like on Beastlord, if you moved the boss and then your statue's over there, and
yeah, you got to keep an eye on it, but
yeah,
there are more positives than negatives for sure. If you know how to control it, it's really a nice tool to have on any fights with ads or like threat resets, I guess. I mean, you could technically pick up a boss as well, or whatever. Like anything that you need to pick up, you could help you out with, I guess. And you can, most importantly, you can taunt off it if you have to taunt a big pack of ads if you want them to have speed on them. I mean, you could taunt 8 mobs and give them 50% speed, which could be useful for some fights. Or if you're trying to reset the fight and there's like some big fence and ghouls on the inside, you can place a statue, taunt the statue, and you'll run out and you'll save your friends. I usually wait though until some of the less important people are dead, but then you can help them out. So
some of the less important, but you gotta make sure that durability damage goes to people you don't like, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So, soapbox time, gentlemen. Little time for each of you. Totally have anything to leave the Brewmaster community with? Some nuggets of knowledge, some inside information, some tips and tricks, but we got for them? What you got?
How many hours left do we have to rant about things?
You got about 17.
Okay, but real quick, it's just Brewmasters in general just have a lot of kind of traps and everything where, things that look like a good idea on the surface actually secretly really aren't. And that's just kind of a hurdle that a lot of people have in playing the spec. It's really fun once you start playing it and everything, but it's just a lot of weird little things about the spec that can make what seems like a really good idea actually turn out to be a really bad idea. And people just have to be really careful when they're playing the spec that that you actually kind of think about what you're doing, because there are a lot of tricks. Like Breath of Fire, an entire spell that is just a trap that does nothing except do damage, and yet people would use that instead of getting shuffle out.
Who knows?
Well, right. Hey, those mobs though, there's some damage on them, right? You gotta, right?
It's good if you wanna ever transitioning into a phase which is really tight in DPS. If you put it up 1 second before, then you have a 7-second free Breath of Fire. I guess you have 2 less chi though, but yeah. So there's always that for extra like 2k damage.
It looks cool.
It does look cool,
yes.
And I mean it is useful on like really big amount of targets, but then you kind of have to like have the extra chi, I guess.
Fair enough. So Luun, your turn now. Soapbox it up. What you got?
Well, if you play Brewmaster, I guess congrats, you picked the right class. It's well, that's the truth though. Like it's just so good, and I don't know. There is a lot of traps though. Like Total said, like it's you can get trapped here and there, but it's just you just gotta play and learn. And once you play it for a bit, you kind of like learn the purifying things, how to save up chi for what abilities, and never like I mean, if you're sitting there with no energy and no chi, and there's the big boss ability you have to guard, and those things will like work out after a while, I guess. But it's just like one of those classes you have to play a bit to learn. I think it's not as easy to just pick up and play. It's not that hard to master once you like know what to do. But some classes might be easier to pick up, and yeah.
Interesting. Gotcha. Well, if that's gonna do it, I think it's button time, gentlemen. I think it's button time, and here it comes. There it is. Thank you all so much for tuning in today for episode number 74. If you have anything else you want to know about Final Boss TV, you can go head over to FinalBoss.TV. We're working on the new website and the back end and stuff like that soon, so we'll have a whole fresh face. And there'll also be the new Warlords favored part of the website that will be able to link and cross-reference to any player categories, website, IRC, little blog that are worthwhile for everyone else to check. If you're like I'm looking for this X, Y, and Z class, I don't know what this community about that. That's coming. Don't worry about that. But our guests today for Brewmaster Monks were, there's Totalchai. You can go follow him on Twitter at Totalchai and bump into him at Peak of Serenity. Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure. Hello? Total? You there? Oh,
hi.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on the show.
I forgot to push to talk on.
Yes, you do. Thank you. A lot of fun having you on the show, sir.
Hi. Thank you.
And there's Luun over here. You can go see more about ScrubBusters at ScrubBusters.com. They have fun screenshots.
We have fun screenshots, yeah. We're very serious guild.
Like, super serious guild. Absolutely. You guys just locked in World 11th. Congratulations for that.
Yeah, thanks.
Good stuff. You keep safe in that castle basement that you're currently in. All right?
Oh, I'm pretty safe for now. Like, but yeah, who knows?
No,
who knows?
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough, sir. Good having you back on the show again.
Yeah, it's nice to be back.
Ooh, was it? Okay. Good.
Maybe.
Maybe. So next week's episode is going to not happen. It is my birthday weekend. I'm going to be working a lot on war crimes and scheduling and putting together all the sketch groups. We need the animators working in concept art all figured out and start storyboarding and whatnot. So there's no show on the 22nd. Yes. Next episode of Final Boss Live will be on the 29th of March. It'll be Holy Paladins. So more details on the guest coming up for Holy Paladins on social media on our Facebook and Twitter, which you can follow right down below the stream. Boop. All links are right down there or on our website as well. So thank you all so much for being here. Everyone behind the scenes of Final Boss appreciates your support. And we will see you for the after show here in a little bit. Trust in your seal of tempered fate. Have fun with the new eye level upgrades coming on Tuesday, most likely. And we'll see you next week, guys. Bye! Wait for the nice people! Or do some monk-oriented thing. Gentlemen, total do... God, that was hard. Really? Jeez.
We're like asleep, so...
Yeah.